Hey all. So, War 4 against GT40 here. We face them at least once a season these days, which is generally a good sign because, yeah, they're close to undefeated. We know this. Um, so not expecting to win this one, but we always try and give it our absolute best, right? It's always an interesting defense and fun to try new stuff out. Speaking of which, this is the first war that Photon is part of the tactic, and so you will see me trying that out. And as you can see already in this fight, it is an absolute blast. The fact that she gets a wither every time she makes contact means she ramps so insanely fast. Like, look at that. We went into pure light form as we got to our first bar of power, right? Like, it's so nice. And so that means we now have a full miss counter. We throw this, and we are just doing so much damage. Like, we don't need to be throwing specials, honestly. We could just combo this down, but there's just so little threat in this fight because she has that miss counter and all that uptime that this is going great. So now we back off. We knew that that was going to run out. We're going to bait out this special. And we're going to go back to just using mediums, right? Because when she's not in pure light form, it's just her mediums that can't miss. Very helpful piece of utility that allows you to safely, punish his heavies, to intercept him. But generally, you have to be a bit more careful. We throw the special one there, even though it misses because the end doesn't, and it's reducing his block proficiency enough that that takes him down. So, nice fight there, and now we have Shuri on heavy hitter. This is a perfect Photon fight. You have the miss counter to deal with Shuri's untouchable. You have parry projectiles so that you can actually knock Shuri down without having to worry about using specials, and without having to deal with heavy hitter. It's just a great time. You can see there we actually make a very dumb mistake. No idea why I did that. But getting parried is not a problem as long as you don't do it too often with Photon. Because as you can see, then we just go untouchable. We're safe, and then we use it to hit her again. So it is worth pointing out on this particular node, Shuri's ability accuracy cannot be modified, and so the slow that we are placing when we knock her down is not actually stopping her from getting the unstoppable on her heavy charge, but it is allowing us to hit her safely. And so even though we don't need to do that, we can just parry against Shuri even with all of her non-contact attacks. It does make the fight that much easier. Our special 3 doesn't do a whole lot of damage because Shuri has so much armor, but that's totally fine. We're just continuing to move along. We're going to go ahead and let Pure Light form fall off eventually. We're actually getting quite a bit of pause time out of this just by continuing to push her over a bar. But then finally it falls off and we start just ramping towards the next fight again. Throw our heavy there. It's also, of course, nice that even though we're not reducing or we're not reversing willpower, which would be a pretty potent source of damage if we didn't turn off the opponent's willpower, we're also not dealing with it on those times when the AI decides to be more conservative, and so it's just not really a factor, which is kind of a nice neutral ground. I am glad I gave her that ability, honestly. Anyways, moving on to section 2. This is an ugly fight. I'm remembering back. Yeah, this is not an excuse, because I should have probably just waited. There's no rush right now, but we did have workmen at the house, and I think I was kind of trying to rush before they came upstairs, and you can definitely see it in this fight. I should have just done this later. Anyway, we go ahead and do the counter there. He does get passive afterwards, but then we go for the intercept again, and that does get rid of his fury, give us that pause, and also allow us to then go for another intercept and get the fury from the node. That is kind of the important thing here. That's what I prefer to do, but Nova wasn't really playing into it. And so now we've lost our form. That's not really the end of the world because we're already up here. The buff from the Special 2 is going to expire. I'm going to mess up the evade. That part is a lot worse than actually losing your form. I'm going to completely ignore that Nova has enough charges to parry me. I'm going to hit into him like a dummy. But now I have enough power for my Special 3. We're going to go ahead and throw that. And the plan at this point is, alright, tighten it up, get enough morph charges to trigger a regen, you'll be fine, but make sure that you bait aggressively while Nova has 2 bars of power, because you know how he loves to just dash back and forth and get to his Special 3. That one was really annoying. I thought I had time to punish his Special 2 there, and he was just on it. So that, I didn't like that. But we are now set up to do a medium, light, medium, and now we actually have some regen. So things are going to be okay. Here comes the Special 2 again. We're on much, much better ground now. I like going for the Special 3 with Carl versus Nova when it's working out, because you're not supercharging him and sending him unblockable with your own unblockable specials. Love when that happens and you try and dex out and it just drops your block. But I think here on this node, because of the intercept, it's just not worth it, honestly, to bother with the Special 3. It's better to just accept that your specials aren't going to do any damage and stay on top of the tempo from Uru, as long as you're comfortable playing against Nova while he's unstoppable, which I usually am. So I should have done that, and I will do that next time. Now this next fight is really where you see the I was rushing and not paying attention. Because Photon is incredibly good for Sasquatch. And she's even good for him this season on this node, but I did not do my mental prep of walking through the fight and going over the kill threats here. And so you see me throw a full combo into an unstoppable because I just wasn't ready for it. It was not on my radar. I wasn't going for the slow because I know how Mighty Charge works, but I wasn't truly processing when you dex and then hit him, he has a high chance to go unstoppable. So don't do a full combo. And so there goes my indestructible very early on. Incredibly, incredibly stupid. So now I'm a little bit more ready for it, but you also kind of see me frazzled, right? So him going into Wrath of Tanarak is good. Ideally, I would have had a bit more wherewithal and finished that combo. That right there is unfortunate. I did have time on the Untouchable to get around the stun, but he just timed the combo perfectly and caught me with it. And then I just shouldn't have thrown this Special 3 because I wasn't clocking the extra combat power from Wrath of Tanarak, and as soon as I threw it, I knew it was a bad idea. I mean, I can get back from this. This fight is definitely not lost, but then I make another incredibly dumb mistake and punish a heavy in Wrath too early, which is something I never do. I am so comfortable fighting Sasquatch. So you can just tell that I'm very frazzled here. I didn't punish the second heavy because I was spooked, and then I mess up an intercept, right? And he hits me again. This is just like so many mistakes in here. The really dumb thing is that I have 3 minutes left, right? Because Photon is such a good counter to this Sasquatch. They threw physical resistance on him, which is a very good move because most of the attackers that are best for Sasquatch here rely heavily on physical damage. Photon doesn't care. It's one of the reasons she's so good for this. But it also means I don't have to worry about time. And so the first time I got hit, this is just a habit I'm not in anymore. See, there's another missed intercept. I should have paused. I had so much time. I should have paused and gone through my mental pre-fight checklist. I used to be better about this. I tell other people to do this, is just pause when a fight goes south and reassess. And I didn't take my own advice. I was like, you know what? I'm flexible in fights. I can adjust. I have clutched so many bad fights recently, and I have. Like, there are places where I could have died last season, and I didn't because I clutched it out, because I adapted in the moment. It is one of my strengths. But that doesn't mean that it's infallible, right? And during this war, I kind of over-relied on one of my strengths. I took it as something I was not going to mess up. And just look at how clean this cleanup is. That's how the fight is supposed to go. That was perfect. If I had paused, reoriented, and taken the time that it took me to heal for this fight, to just adjust, this would have been a really nice solo with a brief voiceover on top of that pause instead of what it was. So I'm very sorry to my battle group because, spoiler alert, that was the only death we had against this very strong defense. Notice all of the 6 stars that have been ascended on defense. And we could have donutted it, right? We had the plan, we had the characters, we had the roster, we had the skill, but I was dumb. So right there, I shouldn't have punished that, speaking of me being dumb. But this is a really strong matchup. You have tons of debuffs on the opponent, and that's going to allow you to basically not take degen. You see me take a little bit there because the right back at it debuff immunity was still active. If we weren't in Nightmare Outbreak, I would just tap his block 3 times, get our withers back up, and we'd be good. But of course, we are, and so I just wait. But that's fine, right? Because there's not really any ongoing power gain here. And now we're kind of back in the race. We wait out the debuff immunity, same thing. We don't really care that he goes into Dread Aura. It means he does ramp faster, and that is generally dangerous, but not when you're using a tactic attacker like this who has access to so many debuffs. We do back off, wait out the special 2. We're not really waiting for it for the easy pause. Like, that part is nice, but I just kind of assume I'm not avoiding infestation. I just need to counter the degen. You see the Unstoppable come up there. I don't really perfectly handle it, bluntly. But then we get back on the train. And you see here, we are completely stopping the degen. We don't care about it through all of these debuffs, but now I'm baiting out a special. I just wait. Taking a little bit of damage because we don't have quite enough debuffs, but now infestation is gone. We throw that. We do get hit because we didn't slow play it and parry and make sure that the Unstoppable was gone. Dumb mistake there. You can tell I'm still a little bit frazzled from the earlier fight. But this is a safer fight overall. This Kindred is being nicer than the America Chavez I faced the other day, in that they are actually throwing some specials sometimes. The power back boost that we had means that we had a bar of power after our special 2 there, as designed, and then we close it out. So, messy, expensive, not the best way to play that fight, but a very good counter for it. And that's what potions are for. Glad it wasn't another death, because that just, yeah. I haven't cascaded and multi-KO'd in a very long time, but I still never feel perfect immediately following a death. I know that about myself. One of Photon's best abilities on display there when Doom tries to slap her. She just goes intangible. Truly one of my favorite interactions in this kit. I do mess up the decks there. I don't know how much I was frazzled during this fight and how much my inputs were starting to feel bad because I've been playing for a while, but that's not the last special one that you're going to see me get tagged by. There's the Doom Slap again. We haven't really talked about it yet, but the reason that Photon is so good for this fight is that she is, of course, bleed immune. That part's nice. She is not shock immune. The tactic is meaning she doesn't take any shock damage. Even if she was taking shock damage, she has 30% energy resistance and takes great advantage of inequity, and so she would probably be fine for this fight even without the tactic. The other reason she's really great for this is because this is Conflictor, right? Which is generally a dangerous placement for Mystics because they control all of Science's debuffs. Literally the primary thing I built Photon for was handling Conflictor, right? See the stun there. Doom is so evil with that. Because she applies that Petrify when she applies a debuff, even when Conflictor triggers, it is cut by 80%. And so we just don't really have to worry about it. Like, see, there it was again. You saw the power gain call out. But it's just so much less than normal that it is not something I'm scared of. It just kind of feels like a vanilla Doom fight. So really, really glad I have her for this. The same Petrify was shutting down Sasquatch's healing. We didn't really talk about that during that fight because I was busy yelling at myself. But it is a really, really powerful ability for things like this. Go into pure light form, throw this special 2. Notice that we do crit on Doom because we have the Sunder active, which is just one of the best feelings in the world, is landing big yellow numbers against this jerk. And then we finish it off at 96%. Maybe not the fastest answer to this fight, but definitely one of the safest. She just kind of answers everything he's doing now that she has the tactic. We move on to yet another Quicksilver versus Mangog. You've seen this before. This is not my best run at it. Gonna spoil that ahead of time. But it is a pretty exciting one. The usual is just, ramp, get to special 2s, keep all of your debuffs up, and bait out his special 1, right? Dex as much as possible to try and reverse the power gain. Sometimes he lets you, sometimes he doesn't. I'm pretty annoyed by how late I feel like I moved during that special 1, and it just doesn't trigger Dex. That's one of those fun little bits about this animation. Right there, I accidentally trigger our Whiplash before we get to our special 2. Really dumb. I don't know why that happened. It was just a brain fart, right? I didn't mean to do that. I wasn't ready. Now we're just going to get a much, much smaller detonation. We do get the trauma up, which is nice, right? Because then all of our other hits are going to do some damage, but it's not nearly as much as if we had also magnified that first Whiplash detonation. So, dumb on my part. We could be sitting with him at 30% health right now, or even less. Made the fight needlessly longer, and that is generally a bad idea against Mangog, and especially against Aspect of Evolution. Making the fight longer is a fantastic way to set yourself up to deal with more special 2s. Some of you already know where this is going. Anyway, the good news is that we are at almost 700 momentum here. He's getting a bit more defensive. I'm finding it harder to keep up withers. This is, of course, the usual paradox of Quicksilver, is that as you are stacking more withers, as you are reversing more power control, you also, you also give them fewer specials to throw, and so you have much more difficulty pausing all of your stuff. So there, I'm pretty proud of that. I did manage to throw a special 1, dash back enough times to get over the line into terminal velocity before I let him throw a special 2, and so I was able to dex the full thing. That was on my mind as soon as I threw that second special 2. I was like, he has enough combat power rate, this is probably going to send him yellow. We need to immediately start working on how we're going to deal with the special 2, and we were able to do it. So, again, not my best. Made an early mistake that prolonged the fight and meant that we had to deal with a problem, but we had the tools to deal with the problem because Quicksilver is very good, and I was able to manipulate the AI enough to get away with it. Now, speaking of another fight that Photon is absolutely perfect for, that was not a pun, but God, I know that it sounded like one. Anyway, this is Carl on Conflictor, again, like I said, Photon was basically purpose-built for Mystics on Conflictor. This fight is no exception. But another thing she's really, really good at is, as long as you can stay aggressive, reversing regen against healers in general, especially Mystic healers. But notice how we are blunting Conflictor with our Petrify. We are blunting Mystic Dispersion from our Dex buff with our Petrify. And we are also adding 80% to the minus 100% regen rate from the Despair Mastery, and just turning Carl's regen almost entirely against him. It is a perfect counter. It is almost brainless. Like, to be able to turn Absorbing Man on a node that makes him very difficult to control into a game of literally just punish special one, or bait special one and punish it and hit him a bunch. Don't care about his forms, don't manage his regen, don't go for heavy counters, just hit him again and again and again, and he goes down faster as you go because you're reversing his regen, is very satisfying. I realize that this is funny because I built both of these characters, but yeah, sometimes this stuff is fun. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this one. We did not beat GT40 because they did not die at all. We had another solid performance as an alliance, like I said. My battle group would have donutted if I had been a little bit less thick-headed. And one of the other battle groups also landed a donut, so we had 3 deaths overall. Really solid war. Still happy with how our season is going. Running into GT40 this early is just an inevitable result of us having a really, really strong start. I feel like we are probably going to continue to have a strong season. Feel really good about the alliance and the group that we've got and how we're playing. We'll see how this goes. Anyway, until the next one, thank you so much for watching, and take care.